LED versus OLED. Which television is right for your lounge room?
Now, smartwatch roundup. Which smartwatch should you buy?
Welcome to Vertical Hold, the tech show where we channel surf through the headlines in search of the big picture. I'm Adam Turner, and I'm here with a man who I feel very close to today, Alex Kidman. Alex?
Adam, something's a bit different.
Yeah, have you changed your hair maybe?
While July 29th is still the official go date for Windows 10, Microsoft's announced that it's actually going to stagger the rollout based on the number of installs it expects to see worldwide. As such, if you're hanging out for Windows 10, you might be hanging out that little bit longer.
New Australian internet service provider YourNet promises to make it easier for Australians to sneak into foreign video services like HBO Now by automatically disabling geo-blocking in the background. A similar service in New Zealand was shut down after a legal challenge, so it remains to be seen how long YourNet exists in Australia.
Nintendo president Satoru Iwata has passed away at the age of 55. Iwata-san started at Nintendo as a programmer, but eventually rose in 2002 to become the company's president, seeing it through both its boom years with the Wii and its recent more meagre takings with the Wii U and 3DS.
Digital radio looks set to expand beyond the cities, with the government agreeing to establish a regional planning group for the rollout for the rest of Australia. Unlike with digital television, the government is reluctant to put in any funding for the digital radio rollout, so there's no solid timetable.
So Adam, YourNet's promising an end to geo-blocking, but will it be YourNet?
No, I don't think it will be my net. They have one plan. It's $129 a month, and for that you get unlimited internet. Now, their argument is that they're keeping the contention ratios really low, which means you don't have to share your connection with as many of your neighbours, so therefore you should get better performance. That I can sort of understand. But they're then charging $129 a month to do the job that Unblock Us or a VPN or something can do for $5 a month. And they're going to do all that on the background for you, so you won't have to turn on your VPN to watch US Netflix, or you won't have to change your DNS settings to get an HBO Now, but you will still have to figure out how to give them your money.
So are they going to handle the other side, of course, of using a VPN, is that if you then want to jump back into Australian services, you've got to switch stuff off or you've got to reconfigure DNS stuff. Are they going to handle that side of things as well?
You'll have to go into their website to do it. It'll be like some of the smart DNS services. You can go into their website and say, I want Netflix from Australia, but I want Hulu from the US, I want iPlayer from the UK.
So a massive pain in the butt.
Well, yeah, that is something that I asked him, because in my house it's pretty easy. I've got Australian Netflix on my Blu-ray player, just running through my internet connection. My Apple TV has US Netflix because I've just changed the DNS settings on the Apple TV. That trick won't work if you're with YourNet. Changing your DNS settings on your devices will not change where you're going. So you're having to jump into a web browser to change it because you now want to watch Australian Netflix, so you're not chewing through your monthly limit. That's going to be a bit of a hassle. So Alex, you're not thinking that smartwatches are all that smart yet?
Well, look, as you know, I'm a big fan of wearables, and to demonstrate this, I'm currently wearing, very badly, all the smartwatches.
He loves his props.
I love a big prop, even when I can't wear it properly. But the issue that I keep hitting is that every single smartwatch platform has problems.
Yes.
So, I mean, starting at the cheapest end, the Pebble. And I love the Pebble. I think it's a really good, nice, simple, entry-level way to get into smartwatches, and the battery life's great. But the company is limited. It's a small company. They've had some problems getting products out on time, and they're facing off against Android Wear, which is Google and Asus and Sony and LG and Samsung when it feels like it. And they're facing off against Apple, and that's a really tough thing to do. As such, Pebble's future looks a little bit shaky, and that makes it difficult to say, right, well, this is the smartwatch you should buy. Also, admittedly, whilst the Pebble Time is a better looking watch, they've taken a long time to come towards things that actually look like really good watches that you'd want to wear.
How much are you paying roughly for a Pebble?
So the entry-level Pebble, the last time they had a special, was running for around $100. up to about $250, I think it is, around there, for the Pebble Time Steel, which is their premium colour ink model.
So
they're in
a few years out of that, you'd be reasonably happy.
You'd be reasonably happy with it, but you might find yourself being jumped by other platforms and by the capabilities of other platforms. Right at the moment, I think this is the other problem with smartwatches. Nobody's really cracked this whole, beyond notifications, what is it that I want my smartwatch to do? We've tried cameras, and that just feels, frankly, kind of pervy. We've tried phone calls, and whilst there's a certain Dick Tracy thing, there's also a certain thing where you feel
I'm in the
like
tunnel. I'm in the tunnel.
Yeah. And nobody's kind of really cracked that. The Pebble will do the notifications things beautifully, and that's fine if that's all you want from it, but there are limits to its platform. Then if you move up a bit, you get into the Android Wear space, and I'm very badly wearing an Asus ZenWatch here as an example of that. And again, that's a little bit more expensive. You're typically talking in the $250 to $400 price range. Integrates very nicely with Google Now if you like that. Of course, if you're a bit tinfoil hat brigade, you're giving them even more of your information. But at the same time, it's been around a while, and the apps really kind of aren't flowing through for it quite the way that they could be. There's some talk about the watches being able to talk to each other, but again, you need that kind of bigger ecosystem for that to happen. And with the exception of Samsung, who seem to release a new watch, some Android Wear, some Tizen, admittedly, but they seem to release a new watch about every week. With the exception of those guys, it's pretty much a one style, one choice thing, generally tending towards the larger, what's usually viewed as more masculine looking watches. So, I mean, the Zen watch, it's a nice enough looking watch if you like the style, but if you don't, then you can't buy a Zen watch at all.
It's not dainty and delicate.
It is not dainty and delicate in any way, shape or form, and the same is true for Sony's Smartwatch 3. Most of Samsung's watches are pretty big and bulky, some of them very big and bulky, and that's not going to suit everyone.
People really liked, was it the Moto 360, whatever Motorola's one
was,
with the round face?
The round face of the Moto 360 was nice, but it had that little flat tire at the bottom of it because the screen didn't quite
There are
work.
other problems with it, but people really liked the round look of it.
It's a nice enough little device. And LG actually, of course, have round face watches. The R and the Urbane is quite nice, although the Urbane again is a big watch, and that's not going to suit every style. And again, it's Android or nothing. And I suppose again, I guess in one sense this is a Pebble advantage. They will work on iOS and they will work on Android. Whereas the Android Wear, that's Android, and the Apple Watch, which is the as yet we haven't mentioned it elephant in the room watch, is iOS only because Apple likes things in their own ecosystem. Apple is Apple. Now, the Apple Watch, of course, does dodge some of that fashion thing because you can pick your bands and you can pick your watch face and you can even pick the material that it's made out of. I'm wearing what I tend to think is a spectacularly ugly example of the Sport. This one's a loaner from Apple. I didn't pay my own money for it because I really don't much like the look of it, if I'm honest. But the problem there is the pricing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You can also pick which home loan you take out to buy it.
Exactly. For an Apple Watch, which I think would look decent on my wrist, I'm looking at north of $1,000. And for that kind of money, I can buy an iPhone, I can buy a laptop, I can buy all sorts of things.
I also don't trust Apple in that watch will still be cutting edge in 24 months. If it's anything like what we've seen with the phones and the tablets, they'll bring out a new version of the operating system. It'll be a bit slow on the old hardware, or they'll bring out new hardware that do new things. And that is too much to spend on something that may or may not still be doing everything you want within 2 years.
At that kind of price point. Exactly.
The Pebble kind of price point, if I get 2 or 3 years out of it, maybe, well, that's not so bad. At that kind of price point, this thing has to be lasting me a long.
Adam, the latest round of TVs have all hit the market in Australia now, and essentially the battle is LED versus OLED.
Yes.
Why should we care?
Why should you care? Well, it depends how much you want to spend and how good your television wants to look. If you're the kind of person who takes a TV out of the box, plugs in, and that's it, and doesn't even adjust the brightness or the contrast, do not bother.
Consumer, in other words.
If you're a normal person, do not bother with OLED. It's like buying a Ferrari to go to the shops. The same with the very top of the line, like, your $10,000 plus LEDs. It's overkill if you're just going to watch them in a brightly lit room, leave it on the standard default settings, and just watch, the footy and the occasional movie. Save your money and spend, $5,000 or less. If you care about picture quality, If you actually look at the contrast
Which,
in the
frankly,
deal,
you should.
which you should, but I don't want to judge people, right? Each to their own, right?
I want to judge people. Care about your picture quality. Do this stuff. It makes a big difference. You'll be very surprised.
I know nothing about cars. For me, a car is a thing that gets you from A to B. Some people view their televisions the same way, right? If you view your television that way, fine. Me, television, care about picture quality, care about the detail in the shadows, care about when somebody moves that it goes instead of being nice and smooth. These are the things that bother me. I like to have the aspect ratio correct. I'm looking at every pub ever that showed the football. All right, I'm looking at you. All right. If you're the kind of person who gets cross when you walk into a shop and the aspect ratio is wrong, these are the televisions for you.
I think the idea in the pub is that you drink enough that you can't actually see the difference.
Yeah, it all starts to merge up. So the challenge has always been that OLED's the successor to plasma in that there's no backlight. So it can produce perfect blacks when it kills all the color, and then this pixels generate light. Whereas LED, like LCD, there's a backlight that shines through the pixels to create color. Nice and bright, but when you want to create black, you've got to try and block out the backlight and hope for the best. Some do it better than others.
Yeah, this can definitely have mixed results, whereas with OLED, it's quite uniform.
That's what you're paying for. The more money you're spending on an LED is the better job it does of nice vivid colors and blocking out that black light to give you nice deep blacks. Of this year's LEDs that I've looked at, I think the Sony ones are the best. The expensive Sony ones. There's a 75-inch one, it's 12 grand. It's a full array backlight, which means the backlight is actually behind the screen, whereas some of them are side lit, so the light comes in from the side, doesn't look as good.
For 12 grand, I'm going to want a TV to look exceptionally good.
Yes, and the thing is, they don't have a 65-inch model. The 65-inch model is side lit, which is really frustrating. But 12 grand, backlit, 75 inches, this thing, I hesitate to say it, but to most people, in most conditions, will look as good as OLED. Right, I can hear the lynch mob outside coming to get me, but this television looks phenomenal.
Okay, 12 grand for a good LED.
No,
The best LED.
The best LED.
I stand corrected. 12 grand for the best LED.
Yeah.
What kind of money would I be looking at for the best OLED then?
Not so long ago, you would have said double that, especially if you wanted Ultra HD. We're talking Ultra HD.
I wouldn't have said double that. I'm not in that tax bracket, but I take your point.
Neither am I. Right, but especially LG's getting them cheaper. We now have the LG 65-inch Ultra HD OLED 10 grand. And when you look at what you're getting, that's a phenomenal price for a technology that's really only just sort of started to come down in price. It's not quite as bright because of the nature of the screen. So in a brightly lit room, your LED is going to look a bit better. But when you kill the lights to watch, Star Wars or The Fifth Element,
so that kind of theatre presentation thing that people should be
the
going
late night sci-fi movie marathon, right? The blacks are just beautiful. They just meld into the room. There's no motion blur with the stars. The bright things don't bleed a halo of light into the rest of the screen like you see in a cheap and nasty LED. They look phenomenal. Something like Gravity, and you swear you're there. You feel like you need to put the spacesuit on and check your oxygen levels because you are right there. They are the two conditions, and you need to think about which environment am I more likely to use the TV in, because in a brightly lit room, you're going to struggle to tell them apart. And I think that's going to be part of the problem in a retail environment. Where they've got the really harsh lights, you put the Sony LED next to the LG OLED, you're really going to struggle to pick them apart. And so they're going to have to think about what they do in order to sell these things, because for OLED to look its best, you need to dim the lights a bit and cut down on the glare. So I
get the feeling though for a lot of these places, because I agree with you. I wander into retail stores all the time and I just see wave upon wave upon wave of TVs, all set up pretty much identically. That there's not enough retail margin, there's not enough interest, or the staff aren't trained well enough to do it. Every once in a while, a brand will splurge out and you'll see a separate little area with one TV in it. And you can tell that that's when...
No, thank you. No mini butt today.
No mini butt.
Thank you.
Every once in a while, when I go through a retail environment, you see those rows upon rows of TVs. They're all fairly poorly laid out. Sometimes a given manufacturer will splurge a bit of cash towards a retailer and they'll have one TV set up in the corner. But even that isn't really the ideal, because retail lighting's really harsh. And
they do shifty things, like they bump up the colour on the TV they want to sell to make it look better than the others. I know they do it. You can tell that they do it. Don't be fooled by, that one's got the most vivid reds, it must be the best.
Yeah, I suppose the other thing here is, and you mentioned this before, the price of OLEDs has come crashing down. Even the price of high-end LEDs has come crashing down in real terms. And a TV is not something that most of us buy all the time. Is there a particular incentive, you reckon, this year to upgrade? Because I think most people do just upgrade, or their TV dies and they buy a new one. Versus saying, oh, well, look, in 12 months' time or 24 months' time, they'll be even cheaper?
Well, what's happened is they won't necessarily get cheaper each year, but each year's model will look a bit better than the last. So the longer you hang on to your old TV, the better your new TV will look into the future, if that makes sense. Because you buy a new TV now, in 5 years' time, it'll be 5 years old. You wait a couple of years, you'll then get one that looks better than what you've got today, maybe a little bit cheaper. So you don't want to jump in too soon, because then you're stuck with an early one. The other thing is that it's all about Ultra HD. We're still waiting for the content. At the moment, it's only Netflix, and if you don't have 20 megabits per second at home, you're not going to get good Ultra HD.
And that's a really dedicated 20 megabits per second.
A good 20 megabits. We should see Ultra HD Blu-ray discs next year, maybe. They're saying by Christmas in the US.
So it's a chance to buy all the Bond films again, basically.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to buy your favourite movies for the 3rd or 4th or 5th time, you might have had Laserdisc. So I don't think there's a rush for Ultra HD. The TV makers don't say that, and actually, if you're an early adopter with a lot of money, yes, go and buy one, because you're going to bring the prices down for the rest of us. We love you.
Well, that just about wraps it up for this very special episode of Vertical Hold. If you've got any comments, hit us up on YouTube, via our Facebook page, or via Twitter.
Thanks for joining us. Remember, if you like what you see, hit that subscribe button. Now I'm off to hit the mini bar.
Me first.